Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our next session, AI Driven Tomorrow, reshaping society and infrastructure for, for a transformed future. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Ms. Humaira Malik, CEO and founder of Canvas AI, and Mr. Rajit Nanda, CEO of Data Vault.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody's still awake after lunch. We're hoping to have a very engaging conversation today on this topic. Before I get started, why don't we do just a quick round of intros? Rajit, why don't we start with you?
Thank you everyone for being here. Appreciate the presence. I'm Rajit Nanda. I'm the CEO of Data Vault. Data Vault is a next-gen sustainable data center builder. We come out of the Kingdom of Saudi, and that makes us obviously immensely proud of who we are in terms of our heritage. And over the course of the next few minutes, we'll talk a little bit about the world of data centers and how Data Vault is trying to transform that. Thank you.
I'm Humaira Malik. I'm CEO of Canvas AI. And we are one of the pioneers in actually building an enterprise AI platform that has built some practical applications and deployed them across the globe in various sectors like oil and gas, in healthcare, and manufacturing. I'm happy and glad to be here and actually spending time in one of the places that is certainly on its path to transforming the digital sector. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you.
This is really going to be more of a conversation between Rajit and I because we're sitting on two different layers of this transformation. As Rajit said, he's sitting more on the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure side, and we're basically providing AI applications and solutions on top of it. So this is the sort of collaboration that helps everybody understand how to actually make it more real and drive ROI from the digital investments and as well as AI, but really also looking at it from sustainability side as well. So why don't we start with that, Rajit? As you look at, since we're sitting here in the kingdom, and you look at the vision that the kingdom has for 2030 to transform it into a hub for technology and innovation, how do you see Data Vault contributing to this vision, particularly in the area of digital infrastructure?
So thank you for that question, Humaira. Look, the vision 2030, as far as energy consumption is concerned, focuses a lot on the supply side. Okay, the whole idea is to transform this economy from a fossil-based energy country to a semi-fossil, at least by the year 2030. But where Data Vault, through its data centers, digital infrastructure comes in, is much more on the demand side of it. What is important for people to understand is that the world of data centers today consumes approximately 3% of the energy worldwide. And given the advent of AI, the whole boom of AI, the need of computing, the need of energy powering this AI revolution that we are seeing, this whole requirement of energy by 2030 is expected to go up to almost 10%. Now, when you have a situation where energy consumption by the data centers of today go up from 3% to 10% of the total energy that is generated in the world, the demand side application becomes very, very important. And what Data Vault is doing is building the next gen of data centers which are built on a net zero architecture. And what that happens is, if the architectures of data vaults are applied far and wide in terms of all the data centers that's going to get built, then this whole 10% expectations of energy consumption is going to be much less. And what we also need to realize is that the grid is not becoming green any soon, much to our disappointment. 5 years back, 4 years back, we thought that the grid is by 2030, by 2040 becoming green. But that's not happening. It's now very clear. And if that is not happening, the only way that this industry, instead of becoming the next big guzzler of carbon, reduces the carbon footprint, is for us to preempt regulation and fast forward the whole implementation of net zero data centers in order to reduce the carbon footprint. I think that's how we are looking in terms of our contribution to the energy or the sustainability targets under Vision 2030. Having said that, Humaira, maybe if I can bring your expertise in the domain of AI into the context of our discussions, and I would like to ask you and see your perspective on how does AI application, how is it coming along in today's world. You have under the umbrella of Canvas a lot of expertise and experience, especially in the oil and gas industry. And I think it would be very useful for us to understand how these applications in the context of oil and gas industry is making the impact on job creation, on digital transformation, and a couple of other fringe areas.
Since we're sitting here, which is one of the hubs of oil and gas, I think if you look at the oil and gas industry, it has operated in an analog way for the longest of time. And now that AI has become a reality, it has started to implement AI in many ways. One of the key things is there's a lack of skilled labor in this industry. And so where AI starts to play a role is actually making complex tasks automated and simpler. When you require the kind of expertise that this industry requires, AI really becomes the center and the necessity of automating tasks, as well as managing assets that are humanly not possible to access at all times, because we're also talking about offshore assets, we're talking about drilling assets, exploration assets, in very complex processes that require a lot of knowledge and human intervention. All of these factors that I just listed are really the key ingredients where AI plays a role. So when you look at the oil and gas industry today, what we have been able to do, working with some of the leading oil and gas producers, is reduce their operating costs, which are required to manage assets, by 30% and more. We've been also working with some of the people in the downstream side to improve on the quality of their production and reduce waste and make them compliant to the regulatory side by 99.9%. So there is absolutely no waste during that process. It also plays a very big role on looking at things like drilling and exploration, where if you look at the region where we're sitting, AI has increased oil recovery rates by 8 to 12%. Now, these are huge numbers. These are billions of dollars that are going back into further exploration and further automation as well. And if you look at Saudi Arabia, one of the key producers here has already started to use AI to enhance oil recovery, cutting exploration costs by 15 to 20%. And that's just the beginning of what I'm talking about when it comes to using AI. The kind of digital infrastructure that you're making reference to, I think that makes AI and more of these technologies more scalable and more usable. So going back to what you were saying, I would be very keen, and I'm sure people here would want to hear how the digital infrastructure that you refer to, what is the impact that that's going to have in the kingdom as well as beyond that as well? Because I know you're looking to scale this more globally outside of kingdom as well.
So look, Humaira, I think what is important to understand is the whole industry of these data centers is going through a seismic change. The industry is more than 2 decades old. In the past 20 years, what we saw was the phenomena of evolution of the industry. What we are going to see for the rest of the decade is going to be the revolution of the industry. And what is driving that revolution is the whole advent and the whole acceptance of AI into what we are doing on our day-to-day life. What is AI doing? AI is pretty much changing the whole face of compute. What was being computed at a factor of X, for example, is now getting undertaken at a factor of 100x, 90x, 70x. These large language training models, inference models are really requiring very high computing, and by high computing what it means is high energy. So the data centers going forward are not going to, in terms of dimensions, are not going to be the same as what we saw in the last 2 decades. We are now going to see data centers which are going to come in the form of mega campuses and super campuses. Okay, we are going to see a 50x, a 100x explosive size of these data centers. So scale is going to be one of the most important transition from where the data centers or the digital infra around data centers existed versus where the data centers of tomorrow are going to be. The second important big change and revolution that we are going to see in the context of data centers especially is efficiency. Efficiency is going to be the name of the game. If today all the data centers that are required in the next 10 years in order to progress AI, we are going to run out of energy in planet Earth. We really need to start thinking of putting data centers in Mars. That's the only way, or some other place. That's the only way we can realize the dream of data centers. But again, I come back to the demand side of management, which is the data centers have not really been fully optimized. And what we are doing at Data Vault is working on this next gen of data centers that are 40 to 50% at least, or 30 to 40% average more efficient than the data centers of the past. And we are able to do that by bringing in innovation, by integrating value chains, by bringing in new supply chains into the way the whole configuration, the architecture, the constructability, all of these elements of the data centers are happening. So these are, some of the important advents. These are some of the key trends that are going to shape the whole digital infrastructure, especially around data centers, which are now the most important enabler towards the realization of the AI dreams. Now, having said that, Humaira, I may want to turn this whole discussion around the digital infrastructure discussion back to the AI. And again, given your expertise and experience, what I would like to understand is what is your view on how AI, and more particularly Gen AI, how is it going to drive the whole economic diversification in the kingdom?
AI has been a driver of diversification in many ways, and Gen AI obviously has opened up new doors that nobody had even imagined before. So when you look at Gen AI, it has become a key enabler in bringing everybody at par with the use of technology like AI. So I think there wouldn't be many people, especially if you look at in the tech sector, people sitting in this room as well, that are not making use of Gen AI. Most of us are actually interacting with Gen AI in one way or the other. So when you look at technology like Gen AI, it is bringing about what you talked about, efficiency. It's actually bringing another aspect of efficiency, which is productivity. It's actually increasing productivity by anywhere from 30% to 80% on a normal day for every consumer that is interacting, for every business that is interacting, and using Gen AI in some way, form, or the other. So if you look at some of the technologies that are boosting productivity, it's in very core areas. You can look at anywhere from business process automation to automating entire factory floors. AI and now Gen AI is playing a very critical role there because, as I said, it is what it requires now, or it is enabling, is everybody to make use of it and interact with it, and nobody would be left behind with it. So when you look at Gen AI has started to create a whole set of new industry for people. If you look at the creative side, Gen AI is actually enabling the creators for today, not just for tomorrow. Everybody is becoming a creator with the use of Gen AI. Gen AI is actually helping us reduce the amount of burden that it puts on people to do manual tasks. It's actually automating a lot of back office functions. You look at healthcare industry. Healthcare, or you look at, I earlier talked about oil and gas. These industries are burdened by the use of data because no one human can actually make use of all of that data, no matter what their job is. They could be a data scientist, they could be a business analyst, they could be a business planner. But with Gen AI, what we see now is humans are able to consume unlimited amount of data and make sense of it and start using it for automation purposes and optimization purposes. So I think Gen AI is opening up doors that we had never imagined before. It's creating new industries, it's creating new jobs. In Saudi Arabia, if you look at some of the objectives they have associated with 2030, just the use of AI is actually going to create about over $130 billion of economic value in Saudi Arabia. It's actually going to create more than 300,000 jobs. And this is really, if you look at this sector specifically, if you look at the population, more than 60% of the population is under the age of 30.
Yeah.
And these are the people that are going to drive the future and the use of Gen AI in every industry and beyond the use cases that we're even looking at today. Rajit, and this is a topic we can talk for long about, but I think the key really is about the scale and the use of sustainable underlying infrastructure that allows us to scale AI and Gen AI. So I would go back to asking, you were talking about efficiency. I'd go back to the scalability part as well. How realistic are sustainable data centers when scale comes into consideration?
Thank you for this question, Humaira. I think it's an interesting debate to have on the whole element of how practical, how feasible, how realistic is sustainability when we are talking about new data centers which are going to be built at scale. And I think the kingdom is a very unique place in our view in order to leverage off sustainability and bake it and integrate it into the whole concept of data centers. Look, the kingdom has clearly established itself in the last half a decade that it is today the green capital of the world. This is a country which is building for the last 5 years, every year, 8 to 10 gigawatts of capacity, renewable capacity. On top of that, it's building this capacity at the lowest cost of energy anywhere in the world. The world's record for the lowest cost of energy production is actually in the kingdom at 1 cent a kilowatt hour. And what we are doing in the configuration and in the design of our data centers is we are integrating this solar energy in order to generate 24 by 7 renewable energy. And how are we doing it is we are integrating the solar energy together with batteries and hydrogen in order to make this 24 by 7 green energy available for these data centers. And this is a very interesting phenomena because the whole element of green energy is actually cost competitive compared to the energy that these guzzlers of energy, today's data centers are paying for. On top of that, we are able to bring in a lot of innovation through recycling of the water that is coming out from the cooling systems in order to produce the hydrogen. We are using the heat that comes out from these servers. As you know, these chips and these servers are generating a lot of heat. We use that heat in order to liquefy the hydrogen, and using all the elements of this technology, we are integrating all of them and able to deliver 30 to 40, sometimes even 40 to 50, depending upon the locations within the kingdom, more efficient data centers. And these data centers are having life cycle costs where energy costs are almost 30 to 40% of the entire life cycle cost. And if you can bring down another 30%, 40% efficiency into this, you save the carbon footprint of all of these data centers. You are really transforming the entire industry through this green footprint. I think now moving from the infrastructure part to the AI part of it, I think what would be very interesting for the audience here to understand is if we as the infrastructure backbone of all of this digital economy are able to deliver green and sustainable data centers, how is the AI stack going to leverage of this scale, the sustainability, and the green elements around it to deliver value to the end user?
I think it's an interesting and a complex question to answer, and I'm going to try and wrap it because I've been asked that we need to wrap the session soon. So I think the digital infrastructure is actually going to allow AI to scale. It's almost like where we have built the smart cars and now we need the smart infrastructure for it. That's the best analogy I would use for it. So now digital infrastructure is actually now allowing us to build smart cars on it. Because what digital infrastructure does for us is allows us to build AI at scale. Less energy will be consumed and more AI applications can be built so that I don't have to think about every time I'm delivering an AI application or an agent to the market and I'm launching another one, with a new customer, I don't have to think about the back end. The back end has allowed us to actually launch efficient, scalable, and when I say efficient, energy efficient and scalable AI to the market so that everybody can make use of it. I think there's not many people are thinking that way, but the way you guys are bringing about a clean digital infrastructure for AI, that is what is needed for AI, because we're limited by the amount of energy that we consume every time we're taking an AI application to market. It's not the complexity of the technology. It's the guzzing part that you were talking about. It's the use of that. And I think this now is going to enable us to bring more applications to the market, take them at scale, and deploy them at scale. With that, I think I'll wrap it up because I think we're getting to the end of the session. We're hoping we'll get some questions, but unfortunately time doesn't allow us. But Rajit and I are here. Feel free to connect with us. Thank you all.
Thank you.